Hello. So 4 months I have been procrastinating making this video or any kind of video whatsoever. I'm usually a behind the scenes kind of person, and it doesn't seem though anymore. People don't read anymore, so while I prefer to write, it looks like everything has gone pretty much to video and social media, something that I am very, very unfamiliar with. I don't even have a Facebook. So I've been wanting to make this video for the same reason that any other ex-JEHOVAH who is out there wants to make videos. It's kind of to share your story, hope that you can reach out and maybe be of some help to someone else, and basically just add to the band of people that are speaking out and who are coming together and who are choosing to not be afraid anymore. So my story is a little bit different in that I haven't been, well, with the exception, I did go to the Circuit Overseers talk about a month ago. I had other intent, obviously, and but aside from that and one memorial about a decade ago, I haven't been stepped foot in a Kingdom Hall since 1991. Maybe 92. So it's been a very, very long time. Basically, my story is a little bit different in that I did get out before I was an adult. I didn't get baptized, but what a lot of people don't realize is that doesn't mean, unfortunately, that there's still a hole. There's still something, especially when that's all you knew growing up. There's still, your life and your views are still very, very, very much saturated with the things that you were raised with and the things that you were taught. So kind of a quick, I guess this video will just be kind of an intro video as to who I am and what my story is, how I got out. And I guess I'll just go from there and see what happens. So I was not necessarily born into the truth. I don't know why we still call it the truth. It's just a habit, but anyways, I wasn't necessarily born into it. My mother, I think, started studying when I was maybe a year. So basically, it's all I know. And if there was a Christmas during that first year, I have no memory of it. She got pulled in pretty quickly. She was in a pretty lousy marriage, and it definitely seems that if you listen to story after story, a lot of times if you're not born into being a witness, you usually end up, let's call it converting, when you're in the middle of a crisis, because people who are in crisis need hope, and Jehovah's Witnesses offer a lot of hope. In fact, their entire faith and basically getting people in is completely based on hope and what they can offer. So you're going to find that a lot of times that people who join, maybe they've had a death recently in the family, maybe an illness, divorce, drug addiction, any slew of things. I really think that if you surveyed, and that would be interesting if JW Survey did a survey on where people were at in their lives when they decided to become witnesses, if they were not actually born into it. So I'd just be curious. Anyhow, so she was in a pretty bad marriage and needed something, was looking for something, and Jehovah's Witnesses to her had the answer. So like I said, that's all I'd ever known. Now, she was married to my biological father at the time, who was not a witness, and I guess he studied for maybe 6 months, and he has too many vices, and I'm not saying they're bad vices, he just maybe overindulges in his vices a bit much. So they ended up separating. I think I was maybe 2, and the story definitely has influence from the Jehovah's Witnesses. I've heard the story from her and from him, and everybody's version, it's all perspective, but the truth is somewhere in between, and knowing both of them, I'm pretty sure I know what happened. but he was not a witness, and it was Christmas Day, and there was a tree up, and there was presents, and my mother came home with me and said, "What's this?" And he said, "It's Christmas, you know." And she said, "Well, I don't celebrate Christmas. I'm a Jehovah's Witness." And he said, "Well, you're a Jehovah's Witness and you can go to a meeting or go with your friends, but the baby and I are celebrating Christmas." And she said, "Well, Cass is a Jehovah's Witness too." And he said, "Cass is too." And as the story goes, she walked out, and he never saw us again. That part, I'm pretty sure is pretty accurate to the story. He's from back east, so I left out his little exaggerated version about, you know, how gallant he was in trying to provide me with Christmas. And my mom's got a great victimization story as well, but yeah, like I said, the truth is somewhere in between. So yeah, my mom took off, and she was actually pregnant with my sister, and my sister was born, you know, shortly thereafter. We went into hiding from him. I wouldn't see him again until I was 15 years old. And of course, that's going to be linked with the witnesses as well. So basically, my mom met then the man who raised me, who I consider my dad. I don't know why the camera's not identifying my face as not. Apparently, didn't have a face for a minute there because it's all blurred. And so anyways, by the time I was 4, she met the father who raised me, and who's my dad, and he was also a witness. You know, he had a little bit of a shaky background too. He was an ex-biker. He'd served time in prison. Yeah, he did not have a good history, but again, for him, the Jehovah's Witnesses came knocking at just the right time, and they were witnessing to a bunch of biker dudes, and he, my uncle, my aunt, they all, anyways, became witnesses. Eventually, my parents met in Vegas, married. He had a son, so we were like an instant family of 5. And we were very, very, very devout Jehovah's Witnesses. That is all we knew. My parents were definitely quirky, and I think that whichever congregations we were in, people loved them. And they definitely weren't as clean cut. My mom was like a former hippie. My dad calls himself, he says he was an artist, you know, and he is an artist, but he always leaves out the biker part. And so they had experiences, and they brought personality to the table that a lot of the witnesses really loved. So we were never going to be the clean cut, you know, didn't make a lot of money. My dad was Hispanic. He still is. That hasn't changed. But he's Mexican, and so jobs for him, especially back then, I mean, he was a gas station attendant during the day. My parents cleaned buildings at night. We lived in some pretty rundown places. But I would say we were fairly happy, and we always had fellowship. We always had witnesses around us. And, you know, there's probably going to be another videos, a lot of garbage that does come out, that my childhood really wasn't that great. There was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of abuse. My parents were not great parents, but you know, when you become an adult, you kind of, you look at things and you weigh them out differently. And slight family interruption. I'm not sure exactly where I left off. Sorry, I'm just a little amused. My daughter just came in, and I had been telling her that I was going to do a video for a while, and I'd been getting the, "No, you're not." And then she just walked in, and "Yes, I am." So she's trying to be supportive, but anyhow. So I think my parents, because of their backgrounds, they tried harder, and they were very strict. I think I was mentioning that, you know, I did have a very, let's just say, very bumpy childhood. My parents just didn't know what they were doing. I think that's where I left off before I was interrupted. But anyhow, I think they worked harder. I feel like everything that other witnesses did, my parents tried to do 10 times more. So my mom would put in more time. And she, like I said, she was just completely, really, fully, completely immersed in everything that the witnesses believed. And it would make our life very crazy, very, very crazy, especially when we got older. So my parents, I was raised in it from that point on. It's all I knew. We had, just like anyone else, although I heard that they no longer do the weekly Bible studies in homes. That would have been nice to have an extra day off. In our house, we had Theocratic Ministry School, regular Bible study, public talk and Watchtower study on Sundays. Mondays were our family book studies. And if you weren't in the meetings, you were studying and preparing for the next meeting. And I guess if that's all you ever know, that's all you ever know. So to us, it was just a way of life. I didn't know, I wouldn't even know what to do with free time. So anyhow, as through the years when I became a teenager, I probably wasn't the greatest teenager. I really, really had a strong desire to fit in, and I think that that's a common theme with Jehovah's Witnesses. We were also a little bit different in the fact that, for instance, when we moved to Arizona when I was 10, I think I can't speak for the whole city, but if there was another Mexican family around, we never met them. So my brother, he got picked on a lot for being the only Mexican in school, and we were poor, so that's another kind of strike against you. We were weird, my mom did weird things, like she thought it was really cute to have a toilet in the front yard with flowers growing out of it. Our bus stop happened to be in front of our house, so that was a joy. I think all of those things, you're not celebrating holidays, and it's not like I missed holidays or I thought it was, I actually thought these people are really stupid for celebrating holidays. Like, how embarrassing that people my age actually are being misled in this way. And so basically, I think you compound all of those things, and I just always I wanted to belong. And I really did a good job at belonging with a lot of different groups. So I could hang out, whether it was the stoner kids or the little preppy kids, the dorks. I figured out a way basically to make my school life very, very enjoyable. And eventually, I went back and forth. All my group of friends were all, I think except for one, but they were all, most of their parents were either their elders or ministerial servants, obviously. My dad was a ministerial servant. For some situations that happened later on, he ended up losing his privileges with good reason. But I hit to the age where I just wanted to be normal. And I will insert here, because I'm sure this has a lot to do with, a lot of people talk about witnesses, the sexual child abuse that goes on and things being swept under the rug. I'm one that can personally attest to that. I was abused by 3 different members in 3 different churches. One never came out. The second one, he was disfellowshipped. And the third one wasn't disfellowshipped. And so I'm adding that now. I'm sure there will be another time that I can go. I probably will go more into it, because I have a lot of issue, obviously, with the authorities not being informed. The reason I bring that up, though, is definitely kids who have been sexually abused. It changes your self-worth, and it changes your view on sex, and it changes your view on relationships. And so I'm sure it was a huge contributor to my naughtiness that was to come. And I gotta tell you, I'm very nervous now. I absolutely hate videoing, but I tend to be very sarcastic and probably a little inappropriate with what I find humorous, because that's pretty much how I've survived a lot of shit. So if I'm smiling, it's because I'm thinking of something sarcastic, and eventually when I relax, probably that crap will come out of my mouth. But anyways, for now, I know that definitely, and I've therapy for years, so definitely can tell you that did contribute to choices and decisions I made. So one day I was coming home from school with one of my girlfriends, and her family, they were like nice homes, good jobs, We shopped at secondhand stores, and they probably bought a pair of jeans for what was my entire school budget. So nice people, not, they worked hard, but I'm just saying they were up there. Their families, there was a lot of them in our congregation. So I think being an elder's daughter, there was a lot more stress on her. We were driving home, and she basically said, she was crying, and I'm like, what's going on? I think we were 13 at the time. And she said, I can't do it anymore. It's too much pressure. And she was what we would call a goody-goody. So I never would have expected this from her. She was upset because she'd gotten a B. She'd gotten a B on her report card, I think it was, and she was devastated. And I never understood this with witnesses. My parents really pushed for us to have good grades. We knew the world was coming to an end at any time. So I think back, and it's like, why did you torture us with putting forth a ton of effort when the world's coming to an end? I can't go to college. I'm likely going to be, a secretary somewhere, or I'm not going to have a whole lot of skills. I'm going to be a really, really good publisher and a great pioneer. And so I don't know why they pressured us so much for grades, but they did. So she's crying, and she's like, I can't, it's just too much pressure, and it's never going to be perfect, and I don't know what to do. And her exact words, she didn't say if she wanted to say fuck it all, but literally that was her attitude. She was just like, I just want to be bad, she said. And I said, well, let me help you with that. And in basically a very short amount of time, it's amazing how quickly you can find trouble when you want to. We started sneaking out at night when we should have been sleeping, and we're drinking and having boyfriends and going to parties and having a jolly old time. And it was terrifying because, you could get caught at any given time. We're talking a very small town. Like when I first moved to this town, they had a stoplight. So luckily, and here was the benefit of being a witness, is our parents don't associate with non-Jehovah's Witnesses. So there's nobody's parents are going to come and tell our parents what we're doing. Because there's sometimes parents, when you're sneaking out, there's parents that allow drinking or whatever. So there was a little bit of a safety net that these worldly people were never going to go tell our parents. If anybody found out, then there's no association there. So we kind of were a little bit safe. We were sneaking out for about a year, and I was kind of burnt out with it at the time. I think, it loses its shininess, and I was done, but I really didn't want to be the party pooper. Like, I didn't know how to get out of it at that point. And if you ask my mother, she would say that this somehow was done by Jehovah. Don't ask me how. We lived in a mobile home, and the doors only locked so that the handle didn't work, and the door had a deadbolt, and so you would pull it closed and lock the deadbolt. So in order for me to sneak out at night, I would shut the door and lock the deadbolt. Now I don't know why I took the key with me, but I always took the key with me. Lost it once coming home. That was terrifying. But anyhow, so this particular night, the chimney had backed up on our wood-burning stove and had filled the house with smoke. And my mother, being so overprotective, we had window locks on everything. She had cactus planted outside of our windows, just in case we wanted to sneak out. I actually just went through the front door. But basically my whole family was trapped inside. And so I think at that point in time there was 5 siblings, maybe 6. 5 siblings, not counting me and my parents. And everybody's choking and gagging and obviously can't breathe, and they managed to get out of the house, and guess who's missing? So that's how I got caught. Next day I came home. Well, that night I came home. Next day no one said anything. I didn't know anything had happened. And my parents confronted me. And after I lied a few times, because it's important, I think I was 14 at that point in time, and you can't really talk too much or say too much without a lie coming out of your mouth. And I was busted. So I finally told him, I'd been sneaking out, and I told him I was sneaking out alone. I'll tell you, my dad, he can tell a lie a mile away. I don't know how. Probably because he used to be so horribly worldly, he knows bullshit. So he knew for a fact. And the parents start talking. I don't remember how it happened. At some point, I told Shauna I got caught. And I think she ended up confessing rather than like getting caught in the investigation and everything that parents are going to talk. So it hit the fan, and that was rough because I believed in the things that I had been taught and I had been raised with, and I was done. You kind of go out. In some religions, they actually encourage the children, go out, screw up for a while, and then come back. You can have your fun. And while I was only 14, that's how I felt. I was like, ugh, done with that. And I had already been praying about it and, asking Jehovah to read my heart and to help me figure out what I wanted to do and how to get back on track. I was very, very, very repentant when they used that word, and I was. Now, things are a little bit different nowadays from what I understand. I guess from what I'm understanding now with the more modern beliefs is that just fellowshipping is the same. But now if somebody like chooses to leave or disassociates themselves, so the word disassociation is used differently. When I was a kid, people who were baptized and were not repentant got disfellowshipped, and people who were not baptized, so myself being an unbaptized publisher, then you would get disassociated. And a lot of people say and think, oh, you didn't get baptized, you dodged a bullet. Yeah, no, not so much. It's just that's not the way it worked. Being disassociated, it's the same. You're announced as bad association. Your friends can't play with you anymore because nobody wants their kids to be around the bad association. I didn't stick around enough to know what was going to happen because my mom had already set in her head that so there's another thing that's different. So I was talking to some witnesses today because I do talk to the witnesses, and that's my way of unwitnessing with them. And they're doing they don't do that anymore, and like they think I have no idea, but she was saying that now, and I don't know if this is true or not. If any ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that are newly out can verify that unbaptized publishers don't go through committees, I guess. That wasn't the case back then. So I had my committee, my girlfriend who was baptized and an elder's daughter, she had her judicial committee. And they, of course, ask you very, very detailed questions. And I think by this point, because I'd been in committees before because of the sexual abuse, and I knew that these grown men were going to ask me ultimate details about what I had been doing, just like they asked when I was younger, what had I been doing, what had been done. So I was prepared for that, and I didn't go into great detail because I kind of felt at that point like it's just weird. This is where an inappropriate joke was going to come out, but yeah, I'm really uncomfortable with a 40-year-old man asking me at 14 whether or not I enjoyed sucking cock. I just feel like that's weird, and I felt it at the time, and so I didn't go into very, very great detail. It's just weird. So, anyways, they went through their speech and we talked, and I don't remember how long afterwards it was. It just still makes me very upset because it really changed. My life has turned out very well, but at that time, it really changed everything, because my mother had already decided at that point that if my committee didn't go well, that they couldn't keep me in the household because I can't remember the term that I can't remember the term. I talked to my biological father about this, but they couldn't have me in the household because they didn't want me tainting the other kids. And so the option was that if my committee didn't go well, that they were going to find my biological father, who at that point all I knew about him was that he was a drug addict, an alcoholic, a wife beater, a gambler. I mean, anything that you can think of he did to, and a rapist. Don't forget that. Per my mother, the way she got pregnant with my sister is that my father I can't even think of the word. I think I just got emotionally overwhelmed for a second there. So he raped her regularly, and horribly, I held a knife to her stomach when she was pregnant with my sister. I guess bashed my head through a sliding glass door because I called him by his biological name. I mean, basically, this is not an ideal person. I really didn't know how much she said was true. I mean, I want to be like, oh, hey, you're a liar. I believe that she went through a lot of garbage, but I didn't know how much was exaggerated, but it's still scary. And so my parents had decided that if my committee didn't go well, that's where I was going. And my committee didn't go well. And that really pissed me off, because this is when I knew in my heart, I still believed. It's hard to explain. I still believed in the truth. I still believed in everything that we were taught. I just felt the people were very misled, because I had, as I said, I'd been praying about it. And I knew in my heart I was sorry. And so I just knew that it was just a matter of Jehovah knowing that, which I knew he did. And then, of course, when the brothers are praying to him, that he's going to give them that message. And I believed, God, I'm so, give me a second. I guess my heart really goes out to my 14-year-old self, who really understood that she had done wrong and had already kind of planned on how she was going to redirect things. And I really, really had faith in the governing body. I really, really had faith in the elders. I really, really had faith that everything was going to be okay. I really believed. There's no reason I wouldn't believe that, because this is what I knew. Like, these were people that were appointed by Jehovah to help us and to take care of us. And they didn't feel that I was sorry enough, or maybe sorry at all, I don't know. And I think what it came down to was they had asked me at the end of my committee, and this is what pissed me off too, there was two brothers that I knew and I'd grown up with, and there was one brother who I did not know, and I was a little kind of annoyed that he was there. I think that made it also worse for me to try to talk about things, because I don't know this dude. Why is he here? But they asked me at the end, are you going to do this again? And the fact is that I was really honest with them. I told them I don't plan on doing it again. I don't want to do it again, but I felt like to say, I will never do anything, brothers, ever again. I knew it was a lie. Like, I know it's hard to be a kid to begin with, and it is really hard to be a Jehovah's Witness kid. It's hard. And so I had told him that. I said, it's very hard. I said, there's times, I was just really, I guess, comfortable with being honest with him. I said, there's times that I am very tempted, because I want to be like other kids. Like, I want to know what it's like to have a boyfriend. I want to, be in the drama club. I want to, be doing the extracurricular writing activities and be on the newspaper. And some of those things I was allowed to do if it occurred during class, or during school hours. But there was just things, and I knew I wasn't going to make it like the rest of the time without ever making a mistake. And so I told him that my intent is is to literally be the best person that I can, but I can't sit here and promise you that I will never slip again, that I will never do anything. And I told him that, but I heartfelt said, but my goal is really to stay on track. And I think that answer, I think my girlfriend gave a totally different answer. I think she gave her probably the tears and the crying, and I was crying a little bit too, but I'm sure she was like hysterical. She had a whole family to worry about letting down, like her aunts and her uncles and her grandparents, everybody was in the congregation. So whatever she said, which I recently only a few months ago, when I never really, like I said, do social media or YouTube or anything. So I just recently even started paying attention to YouTube, probably 4 or 5 months ago. And it was not even related to this. I happened to stumble on that there was so much activity going on and so many people's lives still being destroyed, and it really just lit a fire under me. So I didn't know, but I know now that there's an elder's manual, and they basically go through these guidelines, and whatever she did per their manual worked, because she was baptized doing the same thing as me, got caught, and she did not get disfellowshipped. She had told it turned out differently for her. They felt that I was not repentant, and that's when I knew in my heart, I was like, something's wrong here. Like, I knew I had given, like, I made the phone call to Jehovah. Jehovah should have like made the message over to them, and I know he's not making a mistake. And so there was like a crack for me. There was like a huge disconnect of something's wrong here. And I wasn't angry or anything about it. In fact, I was very cocky. I was like, you guys, basically, you do what you want with me. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I really put forth my best everything for the situation. And they announced at the hall that Cass is being disassociated and considered bad association, and they had given kind of a warning to the parents verbally that you want to, I don't remember the words they used, but basically like not good for, so I wasn't going to have friends anyhow if I'd stayed, but the reality is I didn't. My mom wasn't kidding. She made the phone call, tracked down my biological father, and a week later I was on a plane to Massachusetts. And that's when I met him, my grandma, and my aunts and uncles, and found out I had siblings. He wasn't as bad. I mean, there's a lot of truth in the things that my mother had said about him. You never in your right mind, even if everything she knew, if she believed everything that she had said, that's how indoctrinated these people are. Like, that in your world, this is the most horrible, horrific, bad person. He had raped you multiple times. He had beat me, beat my, tortured the dog. I mean, all these things that she would say, burned all of your stuff, our social security cards. And because I made a very, very typical 14-year-old mistake, you're sending me to live with him so that I don't taint your Jehovah's Witness children, so that I don't get them onto the same track as me. I can't even imagine. I have 4 kids, and I can't even imagine contemplating doing that. Lucky for me, it wasn't as bad as what she said, at least the version of that I had met. He had a lot of bad, he did have a lot of bad qualities, a lot of weaknesses, we'll call them. But yeah, they could have did. If I was a different person, that could have been like the end of it for me, because I went back there and there was everything under the sun. I mean, that household offered me like alcohol, drugs, the community, and where I lived. It would have been like an open heyday for any kid who ever wanted to live the way Jehovah's Witnesses claim that all worldly people live, which, by the way, they don't. So the elders making that decision, my mother and my father too, making that decision, that could have changed the course of my entire life. And I guess in some ways it did. Luckily, I didn't end up getting involved into any of the things that were made available to me. I smoked a lot of weed, definitely. I feel like that point in a child's life is so pivotal, and like that is the age group that I think I can speak most to, because that was so impactful to me at the time. And my heart really does go out to young people of that age group, that's kind of 12 to 18 age group, where life is hard enough and you're confused and hormones are crazy, and there's a lot of self-doubt, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of anxiety. And when you compound that to a Jehovah's Witness kid with the beliefs and the expectations that are just not realistic, and it's just a recipe for disaster. And so, I don't know who may end up watching this, or if I'll even end up uploading it, but I do want to say to kids that are out there, like, not, and I guess even to adults, but who may still be in, when I even sneaking out with my girlfriend, we were now like immediately shooting up heroin, prostituting ourselves, joining gangs, having orgies. Mostly, just kidding, there were no orgies. Not at that time. Okay, just kidding, maybe. But anyhow, it's not the way that they paint. The world is not the way that it's painted. The world is not that way. I'm a worldly person. I raised worldly children who are all amazing adults, all in college, all with great jobs, no drug addicts. There's a lot of people out here that are not Jehovah's Witnesses that are really, really good people. In the same way, I absolutely abhor the Watchtower and Tract Society. But I don't just say then and assume that everyone who then follows them is a wicked person and is horrible. The people are very amazing, and they're basically being taught the same thing that I was taught, that my parents were taught, that my brothers and sisters were taught. And I think that there's a lot of people out there making a lot of videos, and there's a lot of different personality types and a lot of different styles and a lot of deliveries and a lot of presentations. And so, at first to me, I was like, there's a lot of people already, I'm just going to regurgitate what's already being said. So there's no sense in me, I don't know, I'll write some articles maybe. I do think it's a great idea to print out literature and leave it in doctors' offices, and I don't think I'd have the guts to ever leave them at the hall, but that's the thing. I left that all so long ago, and I think there's probably a lot of things that I will end up going into, if I keep making videos, but so I really actually wanted to keep this really short, too late. The end result of my story is that I stayed with my biological father for about a year, and he tried to get me to go to catechism, but I was like, no. I already felt that the witnesses were still the truth. I really did. I just thought that they were extremely misguided. And I heard a lot in my congregation, which I think everybody heard, was like, well, in our congregation, we're a small town, and they make mistakes and they're imperfect, and we don't have the same knowledge as some of the big city elders, and so maybe they might make mistakes. And it was all happening in all of the congregations. So there was no, I basically was like, okay, it's just the people. There's something that's happened. Somehow the message has been missed. But I still felt in my heart that everything I had been taught, from my book of Bible stories to the Revelation book to Young People Ask, I felt it was all true. And I just felt that the witnesses had taken it too far. No, I didn't think that Joe was going to punish me in the way that they said, or that I was going to be cut off. I felt differently. I felt in my heart I had my own relationship with him, and I still did after I left. I still prayed. I didn't attend meetings. I did study. And I think that was mostly for my mom, to make my mom feel better. I had no communication with my biological family. When I left, as my stepdad, who I don't usually call him stepdad, but just to keep the story straight, when they were actually taking me to the airport to ship me off to my biological father, I had my suitcases in my hand, and my dad came up to me. My mom was taking me to the airport, so before I got in the car with her, he came up to me just, right up to my face, and I thought he's going to give me a hug and, mija, you know, it's okay. We love you. Hope you do better. I don't know what I thought he was going to say. What he did say was, I mean, his jaw. I'll never forget. He was so intent. And he said, so you're leaving? I said, yep. Because I was not going to show emotion to these people. I wasn't going to give them anything at this point in time. And he said, okay, you don't call us. You don't talk to us. You don't write letters. You don't get a hold of your mother. You don't call me. You don't talk to your siblings. We're done with you. And then he stepped aside and went into the house. And I dropped a lot of F-bombs in my head and said, ditto. All right. My mom took me to the airport, and before I got on the plane, of course, those last 2 words that she said to me, remember Jehovah, Cass. Remember Jehovah. And so I was the last I didn't see her. Like, of course, there was no internet or anything at the time, so it wasn't like I could email my siblings. There's a lot of ways to communicate with people now, but so yeah, I didn't talk to any of my family. What I found out later was they never even mentioned me again. Like my brother, who was very close to me, he's significantly younger than I am, he still to this day will call me once in a while venting. And he woke up the next day and I was just gone. Like I was his parent. We had a very big family, and so sometimes older siblings take care of younger siblings, and he was mine. And he woke up and he was like, you were gone. That was it. Nobody said nothing. Everybody sat down at the table, and they didn't get questions asked if he was like, well, where's Cassie? Where's, no, nothing. And so a year passed. Things got pretty bad with my biological father, and I did make that call to my mom, said I'm ready to come home, and she, gave me the list of what you're gonna do, and I did some bullshit at that point in time. I mean, I'd been out in the world. I couldn't tell you I'm gonna follow everything. I just really needed to get out of the place that I was currently in. So I came back home, and they didn't let me go back to school. So at that point, I had finished half of 9th grade. And they were afraid that if I went to school that, I'd get interested in boys, I would hang out with the wrong people. So that was it. That was the end of my education as a child. And so they let me come back home with the terms that I wasn't even so much as to say anything about what kind of shirt my sister wore, or criticized dress or anything. They just had some really laid out things. And my dad said, when I talked to which would be my stepdad, but my dad, he was okay with me going back to school. He basically was like, it's up to your mother. And my mom said, no, it's not gonna happen. She was just scared. A lot of bad decisions they made, and I can look back and be like, ignorant decisions, yes, but I can see decisions made out of fear, that if they really wholeheartedly, believe in this cult, and that is what it is. And I even questioned her about it back when I was a kid, they're that kind of entrenched in it. I can understand her being terrified for my spirit and my life to send me to school. And so at that point I was 16, and I was, going back to meetings. And at this point, my friends were allowed to talk to me, but they really didn't. There was kind of like, hi, how's your last year been? Oh, this was the other thing I forgot about. Let me just add this really quick. The other thing that completely had me lose faith with the governing body, with the elders, and with the whole that they are being led by Jehovah was the fact that I told you my girlfriend, who I've been sneaking out with, was an elder's daughter. She was baptized. And she didn't get disfellowshipped. I got disassociated. I got sent away. And I was repentant. And a week after I was in Massachusetts, I got a letter from her. And it was like, hey Cass, miss you, wish you were here. How's everything going there, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, I went to the greatest party last week. Me and Sean, which was her boyfriend at the time, we've been doing this, details of sex, I don't know if boys do. Well, I guess boys do, but yeah, there was details. So I was like, so I knew. I was like, she is not repentant. It's a week later and she's still doing it. I'm 3,000 miles away and I'm still trying to walk the line and at least be a good person. Can't tell if this is focusing or not. And yeah, she totally bullshitted the elders. So there was no Holy Spirit there. There was no Holy Spirit. There was no guidance. That was the other thing that cinched it for me. I was like, Jehovah, I believe in you. I do. I can't. And I knew at that point I couldn't be a part of it. So when I came back home, of course, I went to meetings. I'm a minor. I didn't have a choice. I wasn't rebellious. You know, when you're a little spunky little survivor kid, you do what you have to do. And if the worst thing I had to do, I mean, some people have to sell themselves on the street. I had to go to church 3 times a week until I could figure out and take charge and be in charge of my life and my choices and what I was going to do. So, I don't remember going out in service though when I came back. That would have been mortifying. I hated service. I hated it. Especially when I hated it. You're knocking on the doors in the neighborhoods of kids you go to school with on Saturdays. I hated it. So, yeah, my plan was just to be a good Jehovah's Witness until, I don't know, whatever happened. And my mom right away, there was some brothers in the congregation that she was like, yes, this is a young brother that you didn't grow up with. He's come to our congregation since you left. They pre-plan. These people know who they're going to try to match up. As soon as that they can see some healthy specimens, they're going to match each other up. I got out of there before that could happen, and basically I begged them to. This keeps going out of focus. Like am I so hideous? I don't look like a human being. Yeah. So after a few months. And at this point, I was 16. I begged them, let me get a job. Again, my mom back and forth promised me, she did tell me, I'm scared. You're going to go out there and you're going to be worldly. You've already been exposed and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, I don't know what she thought she was going to do. If I was just going to stay there and raise her kids and fold her laundry and clean her house until I was 40. But I eventually I convinced them to let me get a job. And lo and behold, within a couple of months, I met a boy. So I ended up running away from home. And, but there was a lot that happened in regards to the witnesses and how things changed. And I still had siblings. So the year I left when I was 14, 15, my mom was still birthing babies. Had another kid, and then when I was pregnant with my second child, she had another kid. So for me, I was going to spend the next however many years it took to help my siblings and be in connection with them the best I could, because I knew they were about to go through everything I had just survived, and it would be a crazy 17 to 20 years. So I think I'm just gonna leave it at that for now, and plan on making some more videos, I hope, if I don't watch this one and judge myself to death and delete it. Clearly this is my first video, so I'm just interested to see what kind of feedback I get. I know I talk fast, and I know I don't talk loud enough for Christmas when we're worshiping little baby Jesus. Okay, and shouldn't mock that for people who do worship little baby Jesus. For Christmas, I might, if this pans out, get some better audio equipment or something. But yeah, any kind of feedback and would be cool. All right, see you later.